Everyday Use, Queer Theory, American Multiculturalism, and New Historicism by Team Umizoomi. Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, I'm McKenna.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Annalie.
Queer theory subverts traditional institutions of society that are based on the heteronormativity model of human sexuality and acknowledges the broad spectrum of sexuality, sexual orientation, and gender identity. A question you could ask is, what hidden messages are in the literature that shows the sexuality and identity of the characters? The strengths are social regulation and governing themselves, and the weaknesses are never satisfied and never a correct answer.
Okay, so for queer theory points, queer theory questions terms including homosexual, bisexual, transsexual, transgender, and heterosexual. The main focus of queer theory is the way that texts often hide true sexual identity in favor of traditional identities. With this, heteronormality is the main focus of traditional identities, in that heterosexual is the only true sexual identity. However, queer theorists define sexuality as whatever a person chooses to identify as and whatever is the standard for them instead of the standard for everyone. This questions all identities. Queer theory background, the roots were formed in the 1960s and 70s. This occurred because of movements for gay liberation and the need of change due to uninclusive attitudes towards sexuality. This led for authors and writers and any kind of liberal arts idea to be able to to be able to confront the idea of sexuality and identify themselves as whatever they choose to be. This is critical examination was intensified in the 1980s in response to the AIDS crisis.
American multiculturalism. American multiculturalism is the ability to see not just one culture and single beliefs, but recognize all and the equality in all. This idea has gained support throughout the decades as America became more open to other traditions and beliefs. A question you could ask is, what culture is being investigated and how does this affect the plot of the piece? The strengths are cultural diversity and understanding of the other cultures to create a better atmosphere for all, and the weaknesses, the beliefs that one culture is superior rather than attempting to view and learn about other cultures.
American multicultural points. A main goal of critics is to increase the amount of literature viewed that is created by minorities. This is also to create an environment that these pieces can be appreciated in. And for this, it is a lot of focus on African American writings due to the sheer violence and numbers of African American peoples with stories in the United States. American multiculturalism points continued. So this focuses on awareness of text and the way writers produce them. These pieces are shaped off of societal conditions. These are increasingly developed through the ways that conditions and ideas are enforced and demanded. These are demanded by those in power. They decide what the era and what happens in conditions of the society. So this also shares ideas with cultural studies. However, with cultural studies, they both have the willingness to investigate literature. They often study art and different forms of writing to help create a view of minorities. American multiculturalism background. So America has been home to all types of life from all over with different cultures and backgrounds since the beginning of its creation. It gained more support in recent times due to the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, along with movements now, and created a new form of identity for all.
New Historicism relates a text to the historical and cultural context of the period in which it was created and the period in which it was critically evaluated. How does the time period of the story impact the plot? Some strengths are can relate to the story, able to learn opinions about the topic, being able to learn the culture of the time period, and then a weakness is they do not read into the plot much.
So, new historicism points. New historicists believe that history is not set facts, but rather interpreted over and over again by new readers, depending on societal views. At different eras in time, there are different views of truth and acceptable or criminal behaviors. This was created by Michael Foucault, and the definition of truth, which is produced and interpreted by the power and the systems. These create the power flows, and it also changes when society changes and develops. It is also imperative that you have the time period in place to reference for the ability to interpret literature. So, new historicism background. Feminist critics have focused on new historicist positions, especially with male/female power conflicts. Marxist critics have also given a focus to new historicism. However, they created the term cultural materialism, which focuses more on the political aspect of the history. And impressionable new historicists include Louis Althusser, Michael Foucault, and Michael Bakhtin. They were all new historicists that focused on developing the background and time period.
So for the analysis of themes, one of the themes in everyday use is a reminder to your roots and to honor your heritage. Walker, the author of the short story and an African woman like Mama in the story, believes that in the importance of remembering one's ancestors and conveys this theme in many of her works. The goal of American multiculturalism is to recognize literature written by minorities, and many tenets of Walker's family values are conveyed in the theme. This theme can be analyzed through the lens of American multiculturalism. Mama and Maggie value their family-made objects such as quilts, the wooden bench, and the butter churner. These items are significant because in their culture, the family-made heirlooms are as important as they are useful. This is where Dee experiences disconnect from her family as she views the cultural items as decorations in an attempt to recognize and reassociate with her heritage. Mama does not allow Dee to take the quilts, conveying the message that family heritage should be valued and remembered, not used as a materialistic decoration. Furthermore, the theme is illustrated with Dee's choice to change her name to a more traditional African name. She hopes to recognize her ancestral ties, but misses the fact that her birth name of Dee was given to her with that very purpose. In African culture, names are passed down from generation to generation to preserve the past in the future. Walker's inclusion of these aspects illustrate the importance of diversity and understanding and respecting in the many unique cultures of America. The plot of everyday use can be analyzed through the lens of new historicism. The conflict of the story is centered around the struggle to preserve African culture in modernizing a materialistic world. During this time period, homes were typically bigger and people had better cars and utilities. However, these luxuries were absent from Mama's life due to racism and oppression that was ever present in American society during this time. In a flashback, Mama's deprived childhood is explained. She was forced to leave school after second grade in 1927, like the thousands of other African children who were forced out of their education during that time. Mama's dream of being on TV with Dee in the exposition sets the tone of the time period of the technological era, and the Polaroid Dee uses to take a picture of her family in the rising action emphasizes the materialistic qualities of society. The protagonist representing the preservation of culture is Mama, while Dee is the antagonist representing materialism and the indifference to family. The conflict is based on these mere materialistic values as she sees her family heirlooms as exotic items to decorate her home with. The culture of this time period conflicts with Mama's traditional ways in addition to the racism she faces and her struggle beneath the oppressive white society. The purpose of the story is to illustrate the importance of one's heritage is emphasized by the conflict as traditions were traded for goods during this time. Everyday use is written from the first-person point of view of Mama. This allows the reader to view events through the eyes of one connected with their culture and heritage. Readers can understand the significance of how modern generations may endanger the remembrance of ancestors through indifference or misunderstanding, which is seen in Dee. As explained by Mama, Dee is materialistic and disillusioned by the modern world around her. Dee values her family items, but not the story and history behind them, as Mama and Maggie do, resulting in a cultural disconnect. There is much culture in America. Stereotypes have desensitized Dee to the importance of culture. She views the quilts and other family heirlooms as exotic, and Mama sees them as useful and valuable. Mama's dream of Dee with her on stage symbolizes the American dream of success. Mama understands this is a dream, however, noting that it as a broad, hardworking Black woman, this dream could never become reality for her. By viewing the story through Mama's eyes, the reader can understand how the lack of education can impact minorities and the oppressed. Those who are uneducated or don't fit the stereotype of success often experience disrespect from others. Mama often speaks in slang and remembers the ending of her schooling at an early age because her school was closed. She also explains how Dee, who is able to attend college, spoke down to Mama and Maggie, making them feel simple-minded. By understanding Mama's feelings here, the reader can better understand how minorities can feel oppressed despite the many cultures present in America today.